Hope you're doing well. I'm Joey. I work with the Southwest Washington Synod of the ELCA and the Center for Urban Peacemaking. And we're going to take a few minutes to think together about sacred encounter. And if you've been around our work for a little while, you'll be familiar with this, the sacred organizing cycle or the sacred organizing spiral. And we think about the work of organizing in community as sacred encounter or listening, sacred unveiling or learning, sacred action, acting, and sacred pause, reflection. What we're going to do just for a few minutes together is think about this first stage of the sacred organizing spiral, sacred encounter. So what is sacred encounter? Well, as a reminder, encounter means to see, to hear, to perceive simply, without a lot of judgment. And in sacred organizing, we encounter others in our community, our church, or in our neighborhoods. And we encounter the Spirit in our work. And we encounter the land and the stories around us. And if we don't begin by carefully encountering our context simply for what it is, then we'll always be acting on assumptions or biases or our own unchecked guesses about what might be true of our context. So we encounter in order to be truly present in our context, to be grounded in the true reality of our context, and to see our context clearly. So in this video, I want to explore this stage and specifically describe how it actively helps us to move forward toward focused collective action. So to begin, I want to surface a key white institutional cultural reality that we're often caught in, and that is the belief that listening and acting are separate and are disconnected. Have you ever been in a part of a group where half the people want to jump into action, but when you push them on who they're listening to, they're not sure? Or maybe you've been with a group of people who want to talk more and listen more and study a subject more, but when you push them on what they plan to do with what they hear, they're also not sure. So what's critical to say here is that sacred encounter, listening to your neighbors, listening to those in your church or your community, listening to others, sacred encounter is not inaction. It's not inaction. And it's not separate from the active process of sacred organizing. It's an integral part of the sacred organizing spiral. And practicing encounter moves us toward our goals. So to illustrate this, I want to share a metaphor that's helped me to think about how we can practice community processes where sacred encounter actually builds. It builds structures, builds organizations, builds campaigns, builds projects. So I want to start by reflecting on how we generally build things. So when I want to build something, like the retaining wall that I have a need for in the front of my garden, the process generally looks a bit like this. I need to come up with a design, hopefully a good design that meets the codes on engineering and other requirements. I need to gather the uniform materials, the bricks or the rebar or whatever I'm building this from, probably from Home Depot. And I need to execute my plan. So this is a straightforward, conventional approach to any project. I make a plan, a design, I gather materials that are uniform, and then I build, I execute. And what I observe is that I think we've internalized this process for how to build all sorts of things. Organizations, programs, ministries, projects, campaigns. Typically, we think in these terms. A leader with a vision and an understanding of the problem comes up with a plan. We gather the uniform materials, the people in our community, partnerships, etc. And then leaders execute the plan. But I want to share an alternative way of thinking about building. And that is this: the dry stain wall, or a dry stone wall. A dry stain is a wall that's found all over Scotland that's built without mortar or cement or lime. Rocks aren't shaped into uniformity. But at the end of the process, there is a wall successfully built. The purpose has been achieved, but the process is really different. The process of building a dry stain wall looks like this. First, we encounter the rocks in their uniqueness. We simply encounter the rocks. Hold a rock, look at it, see it, listen, pay attention just to the rock as it is. Then we begin to notice alignment. When we encounter many rocks, we notice ways they could connect, ways they might align. Then we invite connection. And then we're building together. The role of the builder in this process, the role that I think we need to play in our communities, is to practice encounter with our neighbors and with one another, as our neighbors are today, right now. To practice encounter with our neighbors as they are right now. To notice how and where there may be alignment, and to make invitations to connect. Friends, the people in your church, in my church, are like rocks. They're not like bricks. They're unique, they're different, they're complex. They can't be easily slotted into a design that's made by others. We need to build this way, I think, in our churches, in our communities. I think this is what relational leadership looks like. But why else? Why should we build this way? Well, I think this work is about uncovering reality rather than fighting against it. And our faith tells us that the Spirit has shaped these rocks. There's many different shapes and sizes. They're not uniform bricks. The people in our communities are different and varied, different shapes and sizes. And we can discover the purpose of our different shapes if we operate in this way. Because the truth is, there is space for all sizes and shapes. We need everyone's individuality. The second reason is that because assuming, or even worse, actively shaping people to be uniform so that they fit our plan is violence, is colonization. Literally, the word colonization means to copy. And so a process that requires people to function more like bricks is risking colonization and violence. And then thirdly, I think we should build this way because this is a sustaining way to build. Dry stains in the Highlands of Scotland stand for generations because they're grounded in the natural shape of the rocks. So in the worksheets connected to this video, you'll find some support for practicing sacred encounter with others in your community. And generally this takes the shape of intentional one-to-one conversations where you make space to listen simply to others who might be connected to your project. And my experience is that community work is largely done in authentic one-to-ones where we create trust, unlock imagination, and bring everyone into the work of community. So I look forward to walking with you as we practice sacred encounter.